I am Johnny Massacre and welcome to my show. Tonight, Elden Ring review. 1 year on. Who is with me? Give me a hell yeah! So Elden Ring, one of the biggest video games of the last year. It has literally been a year since it's been released. It came out in February of 2022 and now it is February 2023. At least it is in Japan where I'm doing this review. It's 6 a.m. in Japan. It might still be the end of January for you if you're watching in another country. Regardless, this review's a little bit late, but I think I'm in a good position to give a review because I first played the game for 32 hours non-stop. So I took in so much of the game without a break. I feel very familiar with it. The initial plan was to attempt to complete Elden Ring within 48 hours, but I failed. After 32 hours, I realized it's going to take a lot longer than that. And Elden Ring is an intricate action role-playing game fantasy from FromSoft, a company known as FromSoft, a Japanese game developer, and its director is pretty famous among video gamers. His name is Hidetaka Miyazaki. And in total, I have spent 78 hours playing this game. The game gives you a total in-game of how long you've spent playing it. So literally, I've played it for 78 hours, a rather long time. The first 32 hours was a bit of a mess. We were all over the place. And in the beginning, I thought this game is too difficult. FromSoft games are famous for being very difficult. But by the end of the first 32 hours, I was into it. I was hooked. I was absolutely loving it. And from then on in, I realized that it's actually, without a doubt, one of the best games ever made. Probably the best RPG ever made. So let's give you a bit more information about the game. So the story of the game is not super clear. It doesn't actually have an antagonist. It doesn't have a perennial bad guy who's popping up throughout the game antagonizing you. And this is kind of like the previous games, which I haven't played, but I have read about, apparently. So it's never really super clear what the plot is, although I believe Elden Ring has a clearer plot than the other FromSoft games. And you're a nameless warrior in this, much like the other From Software games. Who are you? Don't know. Just some kind of random character. But for some reason it works, and I compared this game story to a Western when I last played it, which was yesterday. It's a bit like a Western. The famous Westerns, most famous, star Clint Eastwood, Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And that guy, he's kind of famous for having no name. He's a nameless warrior who turns up, and then there's a bunch of bad guys who he has to systematically go and get rid of. You know, the ones who you see on a wanted poster. That's kind of what this game is. You're a nameless hero, you show up in town, and you have to go finish off this hit list of bad guys. So it works for the same reasons that Westerns work. And the game is written by George R.R. Martin. Now, I don't watch TV these days at all, but George R.R. Martin was the writer for HBO's Game of Thrones. So even though this game doesn't have a clear antagonist and a clear idea of who the main character is, purposefully so, deliberately so, the game feels believable. The story and the narrative and the script and everything feels like it comes from a solid concept, and they've purposefully obfuscated the details to leave it open to your imagination. And so it works. I mean, the guy who wrote Game of Thrones wrote this game, so it can't really be that bad. Can it now? And so let's start with the look of the game in this review of Elden Ring. It's beautifully designed. It's beautiful. The word to describe it is beautiful. It has a very cool aesthetic. It's almost eccentric. It's a little bit gothic. It's heavily stylized. It's very detailed. There's so much intricacy. You can see all the fine lines and the grooves and the ornate patterns all over everything, the architecture, the weapons, and things like that. It has huge monsters. It has a huge variety of monsters. There's hundreds of them throughout the game, and massive towering bosses that range from typical things like goblins and orcs all the way up to dragons and demons from hell. And there's a lot of Lovecraftian enemies with weird tentacles and kind of straggly hair and tendrils and stuff like that. And when you see some of these monsters, your initial thought is, how the hell am I going to kill that? They look unbeatable when you first lay eyes upon them, and it just looks unbelievable. The mountain ranges, nature, the forests, the rivers, the architecture, a lot of it's decaying. It's these towns that were obviously once very prosperous, and now they've been hit by some kind of evil plague, and they're all destroyed and crumbling and decaying and decrepit. It's just one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, and it doesn't look a million miles away from that classic PlayStation 1 game. Was it PlayStation 1 or maybe it's PlayStation 2, called Shadow of the Colossus? And I believe that the developers who made Shadow of the Colossus made a game called, I think it's called Ico, I-C-O. I don't know how you pronounce it. It looks like Ico. And I read an interview of the director of this game, Elden Ring, Hidetaka Miyazaki, and he said that he was influenced by Ico, and it's certainly true. The game Ico and the game Shadow of the Colossus, there was a real love of nature among whoever illustrated that game and created the concept, and that comes across here. It's people they love nature and they illustrate it with love, and it just comes across. Sometimes you come across a new area, and people said this in the comments who are watching, and said, get ready for this. This is just breathtaking. It's breathtaking. I think another game you might be able to compare this to visually, although the aesthetic is different, but the kind of, when it comes to nature, it's not a million miles away, is Red Dead Redemption. So people who played that game, my mum played that game, she said she could just roam the wilderness for hours because it's so beautiful. And this game is very similar in regard to that. The graphics are just on another level. And it's cross-platform. It's on PS4 as well. And how they made it look that good, I do not know. But it just looks incredible. The AI of the enemies is probably the best AI of any game that I've played. The one game that really stood out for having good AI in history is Halo. I remember playing Halo, and the way the enemies responded to you, that was really good. That was a long time ago. And this game was the first game since Halo, like fucking, God knows how many years ago, 20 years ago, maybe more, where I thought, shit, man, the enemies here, they're super intelligent, and they put up a really great fight, which adds to the gameplay a lot. And I think a lot of the AI kind of goes unnoticed in battle because some of the battles are so intense, and the AI is so good, and the monster's so big, and there's projectiles and fucking things going on everywhere. A lot of it you don't even see. That's how deep this game actually is. For example, there's this huge fire giant boss, and his second phase, he breaks his leg, and the leg snaps at the knee or the shin bone, and he pulls off his leg, and I don't know, he ingests it or something, and it goes into another form. And then he's on the floor, kind of crawling around, trying to kill you. And when you're trying to hack him, when you get up close for a melee attack, his form takes up the whole screen. So you can't really see what's going on. And he rolls away from the damage, literally rolling across the floor, and his limbs are flailing everywhere. And all you see is his foot and his beard and his fucking... It's unbelievable, the AI. And it does go unnoticed, which I think is the sign of great AI, right? If it sticks out, it's sort of sticking out for the wrong reasons, and usually you don't even have time to take it in because it's so good, it just engages you in the moment. It's just unreal. The AI is amazing, and the graphics are a part of that. The way that they're animated and illustrated, and the AI manifesting from that is just cohesively, it's amazing. As for the soundtrack is stunning. Apparently these games are famous for the sound. Great orchestral sound effect. The dungeons, I remember, are quite cool. It's very atmospheric. They have these kind of pulses of low bassy sounds and eerie kind of subtle choir tones in the background, and it's menacing, it's eerie. When shit goes wrong, the music will certainly change to affect it. And this brings me to the sound effects. You can see every part of this game is just high caliber. No stone was left unturned in the creation of this game when it comes to quality. The sound effects are freaking awesome. The clink of armor, the winds kind of, going through the trees and the leaves and stuff, and the impact of the blows. There's something called a critical hit in this game, and if you do enough damage to the enemy in a short enough span of time, the enemy is overwhelmed and they sink to their knees, and there's a glowing point on their body, and if you press R1, I'm playing on PlayStation 5, near that glowing part, the camera will kind of move, and there'll be a special animation where you deal huge damage to the enemy. And the sound effect of that, it goes, there's a sound effect that builds into the main meat of the sound effect, and it kind of goes whoom, like this, whoom, this rushing kind of deep sound, and it just sounds so meaty and satisfying when you stick your weapon into the weak point of the enemy and then you just pull it out and you get this sound effect. It just sounds epic. You feel it. You feel the sound. So the huge, impressive enemies, the speed of it all, the incredible animations, and the sound effects all combined to a level that makes you feel the impact of what's going on in the game. So when a big enemy winds up and smacks you, I would always go, oof, like this. I must have said, oof, about at least 100 times playing this game, because I was reeling. I almost felt the impact of the enemy hitting me. Speaking of enemies, the collision detection and coding of the enemies is the best collision detection of any video game. Previously to this, you know, when a character starts an animation and then you hit a character and then they have to finish the animation, or the animation continues a bit longer than it should, and it doesn't get interrupted properly. That never happens in this game. You might be going one way, you'll get hit, you'll get smashed the other way. And it's not just you versus the enemies. There's other enemies that come into the mix and they can attack each other. Their attacks can hit each other by mistake and stuff. And everything moves exactly how it's supposed to. And when you're flying around casting spells, swishing your sword, and there's loads of enemies on screen, it feels like a miracle. I don't know how they managed to put this together, but the collision detection and the animations of those is just perfect. And that kind of ties into the incredible combat mechanics and gameplay, which we're going to get to in just a second. Hello, everybody in the comments. I see you. Gary, Richard, Alien Cat, Purple and Yellow, Purple and Yellow, Purple and Yellow, Bretton Woods, Richard, Chris Campbell. Good to have you with us. So, moving on to the script of this game, we talked about how the story's a little bit unclear, purposefully so. But the script is just brilliant. I have a thing for writing. If I have one talent, I can write reasonably well, especially creative stuff. And I would like to tell you that the writing in this game is legit. It is legit. Every part of it. And if you consider the fact this was translated from Japanese into English, it just makes it all the more impressive. The writing is fantastic. The script is fantastic. The copywriting is fantastic. The delivery is fantastic. So the voice acting is fantastic. There's only one character. I think it's the woman who gives you the summons. It's called Spirit. She's called a spirit tuner, and she helps you develop your summoning of these spirits to aid you in battle. Her delivery was a little bit like this and a bit silly, but that was the only character I questioned. I don't think an American would question it. They might not get the nuance of the British accent and whatnot, but I could see through that. But all the other characters I thought were great. They're all British as well, which is a plus in my book. But the actual voice acting was really goddamn good. And the detail of it, right down to the finest details, the copywriting was great. So you might have a weapon, then you read the lore of the weapon. They always try to do this in video games. Destiny is a kind of space science fiction RPG by the former developers of Halo, speaking of Halo, and they gave the weapons a special name and then wrote some description for where they came from, but it always felt a little bit like something cooked up in the boardroom. I could almost see the boardroom, imagine the boardroom when I read those weapon descriptions, but not so in Elden Ring. It feels like a believable part of a fantasy world, a believable fantasy world. It makes the fantasy genuine and authentic. It's like this came from a real place, this blade, and the description proves it. So the writing of the game is absolutely awesome, and the delivery of the voice acting. For example, there's a boss, Malik, I can't remember his name, Malekith or something like that, and he's got one of the runes. This game has these kind of runes that you're trying to find. It's a classic story, right? These jewels are spread out across the world, or runes, and you have to get them all and combine them to get the ultimate power. It's the same story of X-Men and Thanos, and you've seen it many times, and it's in this game as well. And he cracks this jewel and he pulls this weapon out of it and he goes, "Oh death, become my blade once more." It's the writing, the delivery is perfect, just like the sound effects and the graphics. The enemies are kind of like a meta game. So I don't know how they did it, but each enemy's AI is so good. They have these unique attacks, and there's hundreds or maybe even thousands of enemies. So, but the AI is so good that fighting the enemy feels like a game within a game. The overarching game is you got to restore the power of the Elden Ring and basically kill the bad guys. But within that, you're having this kind of one-on-one battle with these enemies, and the combat is so deep. It's like they've all got their own fighting styles, and it feels like a game within a game. So good is the AI, and so deep is the combat system. And because of the fantastic graphics and aesthetics and illustrations, you can kind of gauge how tough an enemy is just by looking at them. And I thought that was really, really wonderful. And I think knowing how tough an enemy is just by looking at it, knowing pretty much exactly what kind of fight it's going to put up, is an indication of the meticulous and deliberate manifestation of the will of the creators. What I mean by that is, in real life, you can kind of see roughly how tough someone is just by looking at them. And in the game, you can pretty much see the same thing. So imagine the developer sitting there. They want to make a tough enemy, and they want to convey that to you just by looking at it. So the imagination they have and the imagination you have kind of aligns when you see what they're creating. And that's exactly what they managed to do. Most of the time, the enemy was as tough as I imagined it to be. So how amazing is the execution of the ideas in this game? So there are summons in the game. There's various classes. There's fighters and there's mages and stuff. I picked a fighter. I can't remember the name of the class, to be honest. And I didn't learn a lot of spells, but there's something in the game called summons, and I think this is a really important part of the game because the bosses are so damn hard, famously hard in this game, that you need some kind of help. And near some of the bosses, there's a summon symbol, and then you summon in a character, and they start fighting the enemy, and that helps so much in battle because when their attention is diverted, you can get up behind them, get in a few hits. Even though the enemy's attacks are nearly all area attacks, even if they're melee attacks, they swing the weapon around, and it can hit you from so far away. But the summons are really, really important in this game. And then beyond that, you can summon your own creatures. And it almost feels a little bit like cheating. I'm sure some people will play through the game without using any summons to just go one-on-one. But there is summons in the game. But it's still actually really tough with the summons. But that's a really, key component of the game. That just reminded me of something about the enemies. Speaking of which, enemies being able to hit you from behind. It doesn't matter how far away you are from the enemies, they always find a way to close the distance. And that, I don't know how they made that so convincing in the game. Because in real life, if someone's really far away from you, of course they don't have magical powers, so they can't get into range with you easily without running at you and making it obvious. But in this game, even smaller enemies, if they're far away, you think the distance is beneficial to you, but it's not, because enemies can close the distance, leap at you, lunge at you, do all these kinds of things. So that's a really impressive thing about the game, is no matter how far away the enemies are from you, they're always a persistent danger. Now this leads into the gameplay. The gameplay of this is awesome. RPGs are not typically known for their combat gameplay. The original RPGs were turn-based, so you just click what attack you wanted to do and then it would all happen automatically. And then over time, there were always games where you could actually have manual combat, like Zelda and stuff, but it wasn't very detailed as a fighting game or an action game. But this is literally an action game and an RPG, half and half. The combat of this game is freaking awesome for all the reasons I've mentioned, and it's all about timing. So this game is about not bashing the buttons. You can't just go bam, 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 bam and expect to win. If you do that, you will lose. And the game is so absorbing and the characters are so cool. You get so invested in what's happening and you hate some of the enemies that you can't beat. Even though you know you shouldn't button bash, you're so absorbed in the game, you just can't help it because you hate them so much. And that makes you start losing even more. And very quickly you can get yourself into a rut where you can't beat an enemy. So this game encourages you to go into almost like a meditative flow state where you wait for the enemy to attack first, and then you react. Is that like Taekwondo? I think that's Taekwondo. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Correct me in the comments. But the martial art where there's basically no attacks and it's all based on reacting. That's what this game is all about. And so when you play for many, many hours, and I play this game for 32 hours to start with. I believe it's 32 hours, then a 12-hour, then a 10-hour, and a 24-hour, total 78 hours, finish the whole thing. When you play for a long time, probably Aikido, says Chris Campbell in the comments. Thank you, Chris. When you play for a long time, you actually start getting into a flow state. You warm up, you get into a rhythm, and you feel like any enemy you come across, you're waiting to see what they're going to do first. And they obviously know the limit of human reactions in this game. They must have, that's one of the first things they would have looked at. Like, what's the limit of human reactions? What's the average human reaction time? And they must have coded it relative to that. And so you kind of feel that if you're really paying attention, like a 100-meter sprinter on the block waiting for the gun, you pretty could deal with nearly any attack. And so it's so exciting knowing that you could beat pretty much any enemy first time, even some of the bosses, if you're really switched on and in the flow state, which is really cool. But saying that, they do crazy shit in the game with random attacks to stop you just breezing through it. So, for example, the last boss, spoiler alert, is in 2 phases. The first phase, I thought it was a woman, then we thought it was a transgender, but literally someone said it's a man and a woman combined, but then someone told me it was a man. Anyways, that boss, it's got this foot stomp, and she raises her foot and then stomps, and then there's a shockwave which gets you. So, okay, I was waiting for it. So then one time she raised her foot, and then I pressed the dash button because I knew it was coming, but then the foot started glowing and she delayed it a little bit longer and then stomped. And I thought, that basically makes it impossible to know what she's going to do, because I've seen the attack once, I know when to dash, but if I dash, it might turn into another attack. So I think there's some attacks which I don't think you have the reaction times to beat. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like a few times they'll mix it up and put the random elements in, which means you basically can't get away from some things. It kind of feels like that. But this game is fucking tough, and when I first played it, I was hating on it. I was saying, this is too fucking difficult, but I knew that hatred was wrong. I knew that came from a place of excuse making, and actually, if you spend enough time, invest enough time in the game, and you will have to if you play this game, you kind of get used to it. And that means the sense of achievement when something goes right, because it's so damn difficult, is awesome, right? It's like anything in life. The harder you work for something, the harder you try when it goes right, the payoff is so much bigger because you've invested so much effort into it. You sacrifice so much. So that dynamic is really in this game. And if you can stick with it, it's very, very rewarding for that reason, right? It's like, imagine getting in a fight in real life against some absolute savage, and you training for ages, and he's kicking your ass, but the last round you knock him out. I mean, what kind of feeling would that be like? It's kind of like that in this game. And there's a lot of controls in this game. There's a lot of shit going on. There's actually too many controls for the pad, it feels like. So you'll actually have to take your finger off the main thumbsticks at times to do things, even in combat, so it can get really fiddly. There's a lot of controls indeed. There's a shitload of armor in this game. There's a shitload of equipment. It is intricate as fuck. And a lot of it isn't really explained, much like the storyline. I think it's purposeful. It's done on purpose. So the weapons, of course, as with any Dungeons and Dragons style game, there's a resistance to fire, there's resistance to water, resistance to electricity, holy damage, all that stuff. But it doesn't say what the enemy's attack is. You can kind of work it out. If it's cold, right, it's going to be ice, and if it's flame, it's going to be fucking flame, right? But there's other attacks, you can't really tell, well, is this like holy, or is this, it's kind of difficult to tell. That you can pretty much work out. In the heat of the battle, you kind of forget. But the difficult thing is the enemy's weakness. So how do I know if this enemy is weak to fire or weak to ice? Maybe if they're kind of a cold enemy or a warm enemy, respectively. But how do I know if the enemy's weak to holy damage, or there's a whole variety of damages, and it doesn't say this enemy is this kind of power and this is its opposite, which you should use to attack it. So there's a lot of stuff in the game that you kind of have to, it doesn't give it to you on a plate, you have to kind of go a bit deeper. And I never got into it because there's so much other stuff going on with spells and combat and moves and upgrading the weapons and all this kind of stuff. To go into the game that deeply with armor and stuff and weapons, I played for 78 hours and I barely even touched on that. You'd have to invest so much time into it. It's unreal. But if you've got a thing for numbers and stats and depth, oh my God, is this game deep. The weapons and armor, the numbers, the stats, all that stuff. It is intricate as fuck. And the game is so intricate that even the options screen has a manual. So there's a help function. And when you go over anything in the options screen, all this other information comes up. That's how much deep shit there is in the game. And the variation for combat is staggering. People call them builds. There's different weapons paths you can go with. There's different classes you can use. There's different magic you can use. I think there's sorcery and faith, two different kinds of magic. And I only picked one class, and I basically had one style of weapon throughout the game. I started off with a sword. I went to a long-range spear. It's completely different control mechanics, completely different way of fighting. And then I settled on this kind of like a big sword, and then the next one was another sword. So I was just like a sword character. And that was pretty much it. But there's a whole there's like whips. There's what is it? bomby knockers, like balls on chains. There's staffs, there's huge clubs, there's swords, there's daggers, there's great swords, massive swords. You can dual wield great swords. You can dual wield like a dagger with a great sword. You can hold a staff in one hand for sorcery, and then the other hand is a melee weapon. But if they're one-handed, you lose some of the attacks. You can switch to two-handed, then you get different attacks. I mean, fuck me. The intricacy of the combat system in combination with the actual statistics of the weapons and variety of weapons. And there's shields as well. You can do one-handed shield with a weapon, or I think you can... There's so many combinations. It is mind-blowing. I barely scratched the surface of this shit, and I spent 78 hours playing. And even after completing the game, then you can go through it again in the same world or a new world where people in the comments were saying it was 10% more difficult. And going into it a second time, it felt like there was so much more in the game that I hadn't even begun to look at when I first was playing it. So I started it again in the same dungeon, but then there was a door that was there when I started the game, but I couldn't open because you don't have the key at that time. And I had the key when I played it the second time. Went in there, within 5 minutes, I was in a new world exploring shit. I mean, if you got ADD, when it comes to exploration and stats and weapons, you're never going to stop playing this game. You're never going to stop playing it. You are going to want to keep coming back for more and more and more. That's the feeling. Even though it's brutal and beats you down, you feel like just one more go, just one more go. That's the sign of a classic game. And when you're so invested in it, and even though the storyline is not that clear, you hate the enemies because they're so vicious and savage. When they kill you, you just think, I can get this motherfucker. I can get him. So you get stuck in this loop where you just don't want to leave the game. And death is a fixture of this game. That's the whole point of the game. You're supposed to die over and over and over again until you learn the attack patterns well enough to beat it. And there's danger everywhere in this game. No matter where you go, you can expect to die in a whole variety of ways. And how they balanced all of this out, I simply do not know. With the thousands or hundreds of thousands of enemies, hundreds of thousands of weapons, the different terrain, how this all holds together without being janky and certain fights with creatures or weapons not having exploits and like insane loopholes. I'm sure there's a few, but like the average casual player won't be able to find it that easily. How they made it all work together with so much depth, I do not fucking know. Across like a whole team full of people, they're all on the same wavelength, making sure everything kind of fits together and doesn't fall apart. With all the weapons, creatures, endless spells, armor sets, I do not know. How does it all work together without any major holes? Like, look at fighting games. There's so many less variables in a fighting game, like Street Fighter. You got a few characters. Some of them have range attacks, so it's hard to balance characters with unusual attacks against standard characters without someone finding some exploits. But in this game, there's like thousands of fucking characters and weapons, and some are like long range and some are short range. And how do they make it all work so seamlessly so people just can't breeze through the game with one class or weapon? I do not know. But that is a major achievement. It's the most intricate game I've ever played. It's open world. You can basically do anything or go anywhere, and it feels like the GTA of RPGs. But in this game, you don't have a car. You've got a horse. And even the horse is incredibly detailed. The horse combat, it's another meta game. The horse combat feels so different to regular combat. And it feels majestic. And you're spinning around on your horse like crazy. I don't know how they made it so that you didn't feel sick or get motion sickness. I think they must have put so much effort into that. But you don't. And fighting the enemies, again, you get into a flow state on the horse and you're just spinning around them and taking swipes at them, sometimes miss. It feels like a real battle on a horse. It feels like I've really done this. It feels like I've ridden the horse and attacked people on it. That's how engrossed in it I was and how believable it was. And all of these things kind of come together into a wonderful community. So the community of Elden Ring is maybe the best part of it. That's probably the coolest thing I discovered from Elden Ring was the community. The Elden Ring community is fucking amazing. This game is on trend. So when I make videos about Elden Ring, they'll get more views than other videos. And that means that Elden Ring is very popular and it has a thriving community even a year after release. And there was a lot of people who watch this channel, which isn't often about video games these days, and they revealed themselves to be Elden Ring players. And very knowledgeable about Elden Ring. For example, Chris Campbell in the comments, he knew a lot about it. Internet Tough Guy, he's not here now, but he knew a lot about it. George knew a lot about it. I'm sorry, anyone who I've missed, but there's plenty of people who knew about it. And I didn't know. They were watching my channel regularly anyways, and they were closet Elden Ring players. And then suddenly we're connecting on a whole different level over something else. And that was amazing. And I made friends with this game. We started a Discord, and I realized what Discord was all about when I started playing Elden Ring. People said start a Discord, and then we did it. And it brings people together. And the community is part of the game. The forums are vast. There's people all over forums talking about different builds they've got. And it's amazing how people who've already played this game at a way higher level than me, they were still really entertained by watching me play. That just speaks to how amazing the game is. If you play a game a lot, you might not want to watch someone else play it because you get tired of it. But the more you play Elden Ring, it's like the more you want to know about it and the more you want to look at it, even if you're not playing. So people were saying like my playthrough was amazing. It was a great playthrough. So that's a testament to the skill of the game. There's actually a skill level that people admire. And it's a testament to the game that someone who's completed it will watch someone else and comment on their performance. And these are the best type of games, which are almost like a sport where there's a skill level in it, right? Halo was like this. If there was a good Halo player, you could watch it and say, you could be entertained by their skill level. And I think Elden Ring is the same. And some people started playing the game just because I was playing it. They looked at it, thought, this is cool, I'm going to play it. So who did that? It was, who the fuck? I think Richard in the comments, who's here now, he started playing it because he looked at it, he thought it was quite good. Jim Morrison's Bathtub, someone who's often in the comments, he was watching me play Elden Ring. He started playing it. He said it's a good game. He's one of the harshest critics. And it feels like we're in a secret club now. I know there's a lot of players, but it's still a niche relative to like the population of your country or whatever. But it feels like we're in a special club. And anyone who knows about this game, they just know. It's for those that know, and we'll give each other a knowing wink and a nod, and we know that this game is shit hot, one of the best games ever. And we're in the same club. We're enjoying it together. Other players were motivated to start playing it again after watching me play. Internet Tough Guy said he put in another 50 hours with a new character build. And it got to the last boss in 50 hours. And other people started playing again. So the community is thriving, and it's cool, and it's really, really nice. Because the game is quite sandbox. And also, people who are not even into gaming can enjoy it. My mum, she's actually plays SEO online. She's into that. So she is into gaming. She's like one of the top players in that. Apparently, she tells me. Must be. Believe you, mum. Believe you. But her friend was there, and her friend was watching it. She doesn't play video games. And my mum stopped watching for a minute, and my mum's friend shouted at her, he's done it. Johnny's beat the boss. So even random people can watch it and enjoy it, which is amazing. And a lot of the people who don't play games on this channel, they watched it, they were getting into it. The community of Elden Ring is fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome, and it's such a compelling game. There's a lot of Lady Deadness in the comments saying, you tempted me to get it. Just get it. You can't not get it. There's also plenty of funny moments in this game because it's sandbox. Weird things can happen. You can fall off the map when you're just talking shit, or all kinds of things can go wrong, and bizarre stuff can happen, which is very interesting. It leaves for some good clippable moments, to coin a phrase. As for the negatives of Elden Ring, there really aren't that many. So I think some people would say, someone mentioned this when I completed the game. They said if the story was better, it would be perfect. So if the story was as compelling as a Star Wars, and why couldn't it be? You know, if it was compelling as Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, and wasn't so nebulous and kind of mysterious, although they've done that on purpose, perhaps you could say it would be even better, because life is chaotic, right? We don't know what the fuck's going on in life, especially when we're younger, and that's when a lot of us develop our video game habits. And stories kind of help us make sense of life. They're metaphors for life. You know, Star Wars is a story of like personal development, like Luke Skywalker. You know, something bad happens to him, and then he's just a fucking nobody, and then he develops some skills, and he locks himself away and practices on Dagobah, and then he fucking saves the day. It's a kind of nice way to kind of organize life, right? It's life stories that we can relate to amid the kind of chaos of life. And if they made like a really solid story with a relatable antagonist and a protagonist with a story you relate to, you could maybe immerse yourself even more, and it would be even more meaningful. So maybe that's a criticism, but I do know that I found out today that other games are similarly vague, and it's obviously on purpose. So the game is so good, it kind of makes you feel if they tinkered with it, it would probably be to its detriment. I kind of like the way it was vague. Some of the best movies are vague, right? Like Aliens. Where does the xenomorph come from? You don't know, and that makes it terrifying, because terror is basically fear of the unknown. And Blade Runner, like, who the fuck? Okay, it's a cop, his name's Deckard, don't know anything about him, but when there's mystery, I think we can fill in the blanks, so that makes it even stronger. And so perhaps it is to the game's, maybe I'm reaching here, but I'm just a hypothetical. Perhaps it is to the game's benefit that the story is not that clear, and then you feel you're the hero and you're immersing yourself in it. What do you think about that? Cheesing, as people call it, is possible in this game. Hello, Ultimate Sunrise in the comments. Cheesing is possible, which means exploiting the enemy AI. There's a few points where you can just about exploit the enemy AI. You can count it on one hand, though. I remember there's something called a tree sentinel, this horrible, like this dude on a fucking horse with golden armor. And if you move to a certain area, he can't go too deep into that area, so he turns around and starts walking away, and you can get a couple of shots in. So it is possible, but it feels like it's inevitable. There are other exploits for experience and stuff. You can trigger enemies to fight each other and get experience. I don't know if it's deliberate. It might well be, but there's a few very small exploits in the game that the casual could probably find. The other thing is that annoyed me was the walk of shame, as I called it. So when you down a boss, there's two bosses in particular. There's one in particular with a fucking walk of shame where instead of putting you outside the boss door, I'd say 75% of the bosses, it puts you outside the door when you die. Some of them, they don't. They put you back like 3 minutes. So you have to fucking walk through the level. And there's loads of enemies, so you just run past them. You might get hit. And, mate, come on. Are you fucking serious? But I know they did it on purpose to piss you off. So when you beat it, it feels good. But does the positive outweigh the negative? If you take all the positives of the game, then yes, it does. But the actual experience of the boss itself, making you, when you die, go back and having to walk towards it, does that actually take away from the net positive? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it in depth enough, but that was a little bit annoying. I call it the walk of shame. And there's a crafting in the game where you can find items and craft them to get different things, or items or bombs and things like that, or poison cures. And I didn't think the game really facilitated that very well. There was loads of things you could create. So I go onto my inventory screen, there's all this crap you pick up, and I couldn't make anything because I lacked the items. So you have to specifically go to some area and start hunting all these items to put them together to make an item in order to use it to get a little benefit. But it felt like the game didn't give you enough of the items just when you're going along, like mashing the button, picking up everything you see, in order for you to start getting into crafting. I think getting into crafting in the game's kind of was a little bit, it didn't make that as accessible as they could have done. And some people say, nah, no one bothers crafting. Other people say they do it. But crafting felt like they could have pushed that a bit more and kind of integrated that into the linear story to kind of force you to do it in a way that didn't feel forced, but just kept giving you the items and making it easy for you to then make you realize how good it is to actually go and seek out these items. So the crafting wasn't perfect in the game. The other thing is, it's kind of hard to know how good weapons were just by looking at the stats, because you can upgrade the weapon so many times, and the weapon like scales with certain attributes. So when you level up, you can boost your strength, dexterity, all those nerdy stats of RPG games you probably know and love. And when you boost, certain weapons will scale when you boost those attributes. And then each weapon, they have like a super magic attack, or some of them do, or some of them don't, but then you can get these things called Ashes of War that enchant the blade and will make some kind of magic attack. And okay, of course you can just use it, but when you get the weapon, it's kind of low level. When you use the magic, it's kind of good, but in order to work out if it's good, you got to invest all these really rare items you find to upgrade it, and you don't want to waste them, but you have to invest and max out the weapon to kind of know if it's going to be good or not. You can't know how good it is just by looking at it. One of the blades I got, called Wing of Astel, OP as fuck. It's got this really fast magic attack. It's actually quick relative to how powerful it is, and it casts this kind of nebulous cloud of exploding stars that kind of collide. It's like the Big Bang, and they're just blowing up everywhere. If the enemy doesn't get hit by one of these kind of star nodes, it will get hit by the other one, and it also doubles as a wall, so the enemy, if they run towards you, they get hit. It's mad OP. You just fucking spam it under a boss. We call it the candy floss. It looked like pink candy floss or candy or some shit. That weapon, it sells for like 200 runes, which is the currency of the game, and the good weapons are valued at 1,000, so its values at 200. That means the game's telling me it's not that good. And the initial damage, it doesn't look that good, but people say, nah, trust me, this weapon's sick. I upgraded the thing, and then it was almost OP. It made the game so much easier, and you'd never know that just by looking at it. So I wish there was a way to know a little bit more about how good the weapon was just at a glance, but perhaps you can if you're really nerdy into the game, but it really wasn't that clear to me. So yeah, like word of advice, when you play this game, just check the magic attack and try to get a sense of how good it could be. And if it's kind of cool, then you can invest into upgrading it. But if you upgrade it to the max and it's not that good, it's such a waste. You spend hours getting these items to upgrade the weapons. And so a lot of people, most people I spoke to play this game, they use the internet for advice for everything. And I actually wanted to play it blind, but like a lot of people give me loads of advice and I wanted to finish it. So in the end, I just started taking advice and stuff. But playing this game blind and knowing nothing about it and not going online for any help, it's going to take you at least 120 hours to complete. At least 110, 120, probably about 140, 150. If you don't know anything about the game or where anything is. And that's the thing. There's certain things in the game which are only in one fucking place and they don't come in any other part of the game. And some of them are unique to certain side quests. I mean, I'll be damned. If you miss that, you are at such a fucking disadvantage. There's a summon called Mimic. And I was reading online, it actually is kind of like easy mode in this game. You get a summon of yourself. So it has all your hit points, all your mana points. It has all the same weapons as you and can use all the same potions you've got. So it's just like another one of you fucking the enemy up that can heal itself. That's only in one esoteric area in the game, in one little place. If you miss that, you'll never get it again. Also, sorcery, my character couldn't do it off the bat. He had to learn it. I believe that's only one esoteric place on this huge fucking map. And the map is huge, dude. When I was first playing it, it looked about this big. And I was saying to people, how big is it? And they said, there's like another 8 of these maps. And I refused to believe it. Another 8. It's already huge. And they're actually right. The map is fucking massive. But there's certain things in the game. It's only on one little point on this map. So if you go past it, I don't know how you'd find it. So a lot of people, because of this, a lot of people look up shit online. But I would recommend playing this game with no help at all. I wish I could have done it in a way. But if I had done that, I would have missed out on the really great community aspect of it. But I would recommend trying that. And other things I wanted in the game, this is not a negative, but I wanted was even bigger enemies, right? The enemies are huge. There's dragons. They're fucking massive. But I wanted an enemy that was as big as a fucking castle. I'm talking insane shit because the guy who made the game was influenced by Ico, whatever it's called. As I said before, that game was made by the developer who made Shadow of the Colossus, which was a game where the boss was a level. The boss was so big you had to grab it and you go on its back and you'd be walking along its kind of weird labyrinth, bones and exoskeleton and weird shit and hair. And the boss was so big it became a level. Because this game is influenced by that game, I would have loved that. The enemies, that dragon as big as a castle. So maybe in the next one, that's what I wanted. That's another thing I wanted the game didn't have. And also, I thought this game should have had fishing in it to add to the side quests and to encourage you to kind of go out into the world and explore nature. I thought the fishing would be good, but maybe for the next one, and maybe going on boats and stuff like that. Because this is the GTA of RPGs. I thought maybe they could have had like boats as well, and like because in GTA they got obviously planes and stuff, or maybe like a winged mount because the map is so big. Maybe for the next one. So there were so many memorable moments in this game. My memorable moments were the first like hard enemy we fought. It's within the first 5-10 minutes. You go into a cave, and I remember looking at it and just reading the title. It looked horrible and it was all a bit scary, and I knew something was wrong because the music was off. And I read it's Beast of Azaram or something, and I just said, Beast of Azaram? Shit. And then it's coming towards you, and then, okay, try to be tough, go for a hit, it's looking all right, and then it just murders you. So the first enemy was very memorable, very funny, was terrifying. It was a baptism of fire for the game. I remember fighting the magma worm. Someone told me I need to get a really good weapon called Moonveil, and it's this katana, and you get it off by killing this magma worm. We get into really nerdy territory now. It's basically a fucking dragon, like a dirty little dragon in a cave. And it was hard, and I was underpowered for it, underleveled. And that's something in this game I don't recommend. Don't go into high level areas. Don't waste your time, just level up. It was epic killing that. That was a massive moment. The perennial antagonist of this game was an unlikely antagonist, the Crucible Knight. So the Crucible Knight was the hardest enemy pretty much in this whole game. And he's halfway through in this place called Redmane Castle in Calib, or Calib, however you pronounce the area. This horrible red area that looks like a kind of Dungeons and Dragons bastardization of a science fiction Mars, a science fictional Mars. And he's in his castle, and he's just a regular, like, big fucking knight. Looks like the knights from way back in 16-bit video games, like Golden Axe. I remember it looks like the same. Actually, it's probably based off that. Anyways, the Crucible Knight, he's just a big fucking knight, and he was such a fucker, and I was under-leveled, and killing him was the most satisfying. That was the most memorable kill of the game, because I must have tried to kill him for at least 7 hours in total, maybe 8 or 9. That was such a waste of time, but I wanted to do it just to prove I could do it on a lower level, but I had to level up a bit in the end. We nicknamed him Barry, Big Boy Barry, because he just looked like one. And then he came back later in the game. There's more of them, and I thought, oh my god. There was one point, there's 2 of them, so it was Barry and Larry, or Barry and Bob. We didn't kill those fuckers, but the Crucible Knight, aka Big Boy Barry, that was one of the most memorable kill, and he's such a massive asshole. He's such a cunt, that guy. He's so overpowered. He's so overpowered. The Fire Giant was so memorable. I mean, I've never had a gaming experience like this. This huge fucking giant. It looks like a kind of Scottish, like, dwarf with gigantism. He had this red beard, and he's fucking giant. He's so big because he is a giant. And fighting that was intense. He's really slow, and he fucking smashes his, like, thunders the earth when he mashes his shield into the ground, and the impact of that was epic. Oh my god, the Fire Giant. And then his second form, as I said before, his leg breaks, his eye opens up in his stomach, and he's stumbling, he's crawling around on the ground and rolling around. I mean, I'm playing it, and I'm thinking, what the fuck? You're so engrossed, you can't take a step back to appreciate it. But after you kill him, you're thinking, I was in another world there. I felt like I was actually fighting that enemy. I felt like this isn't even a game anymore. This is really happening. That's how it, mate, it's one of the best games ever, this. It's so fucking good. And the Fire Giant really made me feel that. But all the enemies are fun. There's a giant right at the beginning of the game that gave a similar feeling, but that giant in particular was awesome. That's a boss you have to kill in the Snowy Mountains. There's a dragon at the end of the game in Farum Azula, as this decaying city, and it's the one you're kind of going along this weird circular level, and it's like some coliseum that's broken into pieces. Like, the level's so cool, and this huge white dragon comes down, and I killed it first time. At that point I was in the flow state, and it was epic. I was using that wing of Astel, that blade I told you about earlier. It's this iridescent, like, blade. It looks like some weird scale or some insect or something, and I was doing that area attack, the pink candy floss attack, and it was kind of fucking up. I was doing damage, and you fly into the air, and you see the shadow, and the wings will just kind of beat above you, and you'll feel the wind being whipped up by this dragon, and it will try to bite you and breathe shit on you, and hit you with its tail, and it's just flying around everywhere. And then there's a point where, right at the end, its head came down, and in the heat of the moment, but you know what you should do. You can see the body parts, and you're trying to move and lock onto different ones. But in the heat of the moment, it's really difficult. But at that point, I was in a flow state. I was fucking it up. Just so many levels of combat in the sky, on the ground, flipping its tail, doing all kinds of things, area attacks, with your mate, like, running around, like, your summon helping. There's so much going on. And at the end, its head came down and its life was on. I said, this is it. I went in, slashed it in the fucking face, bro. The good old-fashioned slash in the face. No sorcery, no magic. Boom, slashed the dragon in its face, killed it. That was epic, man. That was so epic. I was really picking up speed at that point. And just like other memorable moments was just chatting with you lot, laughing with you lot. You know, there's so many funny points. Someone in the comments, Lone Wolf, says, sleep tight. So there's a part in the game where you keep going back to this boss, this really annoying boss. I think it's called Rana. It's like, I don't know, it looks like some Harry Potter, looks like Harry Potter on drugs, to use a cliche. A Harry Potter story on drugs. These magicians and in a library with books that are floating around and stuff. And there's a really annoying song where it's going, sleep tight. And it's really annoying, but it's kind of really funny, and you're all laughing together. There was a lot of memorable, funny moments, especially just when you're getting pummeled and beaten down and you're talking shit on the bosses. The achievements in the game, my personal achievements was, I felt like I killed Margit, the first boss, well, on a low level. It took me like an hour or something, or maybe less. I think the second boss is Godric. I think I killed him on my second try. So I thought that was quite a good achievement. Radahn, I think I killed him on my third try. The E-Honda boss, that's like second to last, looks like E-Honda, and Heihachi from Tekken, like a crossbreed. I killed him on like fifth or sixth try. And the fat one, they're called the Godskin Apostles, the Nightmare Twins. I killed those pretty quickly. People thought they might give me a problem. Maliket, one of the really horrible one. His second form, his first form isn't too bad. His second form, he turns into this kind of puma type thing. It's just fucking, like, the stuff he's doing, it's like something from the Matrix. He's all over the place. I think I killed him reasonably well. So those are my achievements, was just blazing through some of the tougher bosses. Everyone was telling me it would take you 10 hours to kill this boss, all this kind of stuff. It didn't. And I don't think I was overpowered for any of them. Radahn, maybe I was a little bit above. But I'm not going to lie, the weapon, the Wing of Astel, made it so much easier. And the Mimic, the summon that mimics yourself. If I hadn't had those, it would have been a different story. And people did tell me where to find those. But I think that was quite an achievement. I do wonder how good I am at the game. Some people would turn on and watch it that were new to my channel, and they say you're pretty good. Am I good at the game? I don't know. 78 hours, and I think I finished the game around level 97, 98, 99. I don't know if that means I'm good or not, or average. So I'd like to have your feedback about how good I am at it. And there's still so much more in this goddamn game. 78 hours. If I hadn't had advice, it would have taken me about 140, 150. And we still haven't done PvP, player versus player, online competitive multiplayer. That was added in the DLC fairly recently, and I still haven't even tried that. You can also collaborate and get friends to help you on bosses. It's a shame the game's not collaborative all the way through. Perhaps the next From Software RPG. That's going to be the kind of game which will end all games. But for now, collaborative, like multiplayer, is only on the bosses. Haven't even done that. People talk about invading. I don't know what that is, but I think you can invade people's games and attack people, something like that if you switch it on. Haven't even done that. So there's still a whole load more stuff in the game. I have barely scratched the surface. I went through with just limited weapon set, just a few swords. There's so many different kinds of weapons, range spears, great swords, dual wielding, all kinds of shit. I hardly use any spells. There's shitloads more spells. Sorcery, there's faith spells, I think, which I didn't even use one of those. There's so many fucking areas in this game, caves, dungeons. I raced through it all in 78 hours with loads of guys from everyone who's watching and just wanted to finish as soon as possible. I skipped through so much. The replayability, as briefly touched upon before, is clearly awesome. I went straight back into the game. In the first area, I found something new, and I was desperate to find everything else. There's loads of other bosses which you don't even have to kill, which you can miss. There's so much other shit. There's multiple endings. Spoiler, big spoiler, so turn off if you don't want it. The ending I got was horrible. It was about 30 seconds, and I sat down in a massive chair, and the game was over. Apparently, there's various other endings you can get, like 5 or 6. I think I finished the game with 9 flasks in total. I think it was like 6, and you can distribute them between health and magic points. I think it was like 6 health and like 3 magic. So does that mean I'm good if I finish on 9 flasks? I don't know. And I didn't want to play this game because I had become set in my ways. I knew I could get into it because I played loads of RPGs. I've been gaming for like 37 years. But the nerdiness of it kind of prevented me from it. I'm not slighting people who are into Dungeons and Dragons. I used to play like fucking hours of Dungeons and Dragons text-based games like back in the late 90s. So I know about it, but I just felt like I'm set in my ways. I don't want to get into this nerdy shit again. But now I'm back and I love it. And the level design, the aesthetics and creature design, just beautiful. The intricacy of every part of this game, including the animations, the combat system, the insane depth and customizability of everything in the game is just beyond everything else in the genre that I've played. Elden Ring is certainly the best role-playing game I've ever played. Previously, my favorite role-playing game, I've probably forgotten a bunch of them, but Knights of the Old Republic, that Star Wars RPG, that was fucking awesome. I loved that game. That felt like a true Star Wars sequel, so well written, clearly by Star Wars fans. If only they'd written the new Star Wars movies. Other RPGs I loved was Story of Thor on the Mega Drive. I liked Oblivion 4, Elder Scrolls, I think it was called. Also, Zelda, Legends of Zelda, Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. That was awesome. I also like Wonder Boy in Monster World on the Mega Drive. So there's plenty of RPGs I've liked. But this is the ultimate realization of the genre. All those older games, the 2D ones, this is what they were aiming for. If you look at the stuff, going back to Wonder Boy, the Japanese RPG, on the title screen, there's a massive dragon, and then there's a hero with a sword. I mean, it's the archetypal story. This is what they were aiming for in video games. It's the ultimate realization of the RPG genre, in my opinion. I don't have a lot of experience with RPGs these days. I've never played the recent Zelda games, so I don't have as much experience as other players, but I'm a very experienced gamer, and I've been playing RPGs for a long time, and I've got to say, this is fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. And it's without a doubt one of the best games ever made, and it's obviously one of the best RPGs ever made. I don't really see any other games which you could say absolutely are as revered as this one, even though this game came out only a year ago. So that's my review of Elden Ring. 10 out of 10. Nothing less. Just fucking play it. If you like video games, just fucking play it. I don't care what genre you like. Anyone can get into it. The only thing that might make it you not like it is if you're a very casual gamer. No disrespect. Like, I'm not saying you have to be like proper into video games, but if you're kind of very casual, you just want to play for a little bit, it's so fucking intense and demands so much of your time that will kind of piss you off. Even for someone like me who's been playing for a long time, I was hating the game's difficulty until about 24 hours in. Then I started to realize how awesome this was. But for anyone else, it's an absolutely essential play. You can't be into video games and not play Elden Ring. I am Johnny Massacre, and if you're just joining us, this is my review of Elden Ring. But if you have been watching from the beginning, stop your grinning and drop your linen, donate some cash, and let's keep winning. Streamlabs.com/Johnny Massacre. The more you donate, the more of me you're going to get. Only 3 hours to go. Can we get the total to $1,000? We've made $790 donations, for which I am very grateful indeed. Thank you everyone for donating as well during the 24-hour live stream that ended yesterday. I see you all in the comments. Lone Wolf says PC version mod allows full co-op. Chris Campbell says, I would guess you've explored about 75% of the game world. Bretton Wood says, I've been playing Monster World 4 on the Sega Mega Drive Mini. Pretty cool. That's a great game. And I didn't kill the last boss. I wish I had. Maybe we'll have to go back and visit that. That might be fun. Can we do that in 24 hours? Maybe we should do that. Moshpit70 says, old gamer here. Last one I played was Socom Navy SEALs PS2. I remember when that came out. Mate, you got to play Elden Ring. You got to get it. Trust me. Lone Wolf says, yeah, second Monster World. I think Johnny would love that one. Yeah, no, I played that. Like, I love that. The music is so good in Monster World. But that was Monster World 4 in the UK. But I think Monster World 4 in Japan was a different one that I got on the Mega Drive Mini Japan with like a bird in it. That one wasn't as good as the one I played. Bretton Wood says, could you get your mum to play Elden Ring, Johnny, if she likes Red Dead? I think she said she played it, but it was too fucking intense. That's what I was saying. My mum likes... that requires that really fiddly shit, and people who play Elden Ring can play FPS and they're a bit twitchy, so my mum wasn't really feeling it. But let's see, maybe she could get into it. Yeah, the Mega Drive Japan Mini is different to the Western one. The Mega Drive Mini in Japan has like weird RPGs on it, and I can't understand anything on them, and it took off a bunch of games I loved, so I got the wrong one, and I bricked one trying to put games on it, but then another one I didn't brick. Richard says, I prefer Witcher 3 after playing Elden Ring for a good swedge, whatever that means. Hello, Richard. So Brad W in the comments also says, is trying to get me to play Witcher 3. But can it really? The combat can't be as good as Elden Ring, can it? Chris Campbell says, take a look at Subnautica sometime. What is that, mate? So Elden Ring, man. So I want to go back into it, but I think we should play something else. So any ideas what we should play next? I'm thinking Dead Space 2... Is it Dead Space 2 or Dead Space Remake just came out? So that's probably going to have a lot of eyeballs, and we want to get more people on the channel, so it would make sense to stream something that is trend. Do you know what I mean? So what do you think? Dead Space Remake, or should we do a 16-bit game? Should we do Wonder Boy in Monster World 4, whatever it's called? Wonder Boy in Monster World for Mega Drive. We could do Sekiro by FromSoft. We could do Bloodborne by FromSoft. We could do Demon Souls by FromSoft. Bloodborne apparently runs at 30 frames a second and doesn't take advantage of the extra power of the current generation of consoles. So might want to wait until they upgrade that. But Bloodborne looks awesome, man. So I'm tempted. I think we might do Sekiro. But apparently it's a 33-hour game. If we do that on a live stream without sleep, that's going to be brutal. So I can't promise I'll do the whole 33 if we can even complete the game in that space of time. But I was thinking about Sekiro. Should we do a little quick vote now? Let's see. Start a poll. Next game we play. on a live stream. And then the other thing is, should I do it on a 24-hour live stream? Just go all in? Or should we just start playing a game in the meantime? Or we can play 2 games, one in the meantime and one for 24-hour live streams. Next game we should play in the 24-hour live stream. Sekiro. And the other one is Dead Space. Let's add an option. Resident... Witcher 3. I'm afraid of this. Alien Cat says Ultima 3 for the win. What is that? Let's see. Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy in Monster World. Mega Drive. Alright. Ask the community. I'll just ask you there. The poll is coming up right now. Brad W has tipped $10. He says, my donations keep taking from an old card. Ooh. Thank you, Brad. My donations keep taking from an old card. So some weird card is taking your donations. As long as it goes into my bank, I won't complain. Thank you so much, Brad. Appreciate that. Papa in Yellow says, made it to the last boss of Sekiro last night. Got humbled for 2 hours straight. Combat system 10 out of 10. Ooh, that does sound good. That does sound good. That's tempting me. Bretton Woods says, remember YouTube's new blood and gore policy. What does that mean, Bretton Woods? What does that mean? I haven't heard about YouTube's blood and gore policy. Are they going to start censoring stuff? Please let me know what you mean by that. So we've got the poll and we got a few votes. So Sekiro, we've had only 6 votes. Sekiro, 50% of the vote. Dead Space, people don't want Dead Space, 17% of the vote. Witcher 3, 33%, and Wonder Boy, 0%. Yeah, pretty big deal on YouTube in the last couple of weeks. Damn, that was a difficult vote, said Chris Campbell. Why? What did you vote for, mate? My vote went to Dead Space by accident, says Brad W. So he actually went for The Witcher, but I'd rather play Sekiro, so I'm not gonna add that. Too late, mate. So apparently YouTube has a blood and gore policy. Damn, no idea what you're talking about. Maybe on the wrong stream. Love Japan and Johnny seems cool, says Moshpit70. We're just talking about nerdy game stuff. Moshpit, are you new here? Moshpit70. So how did you come across the stream if you're not into gaming? Well, you said the last game you played was Socom, so I'm not sure how you found the live stream, but here we are. Thank you. You seem cool too, Moshpit70. What are you moshing to music-wise? Bretton Woods says, demonetizing channels who show any kind of violence, even if like virtual stuff. Does that mean a playthrough of Elden Ring? Because that has crazy bloody violence in, right? Fair enough. Bretton Woods says, well, bloody violence anyways. Chris Campbell says, Witcher, Sekiro, Dead Space would all be good. I'm not sure if I want to go straight into another FromSoft game now. I kind of want to give another game a chance. I'm tempted to do Dead Space because it's violent and gory, which is what YouTube's going to ban. Let's have a look at this. YouTube blood violence policy video games. So does that mean all video game channels are going to get demonetized? Take the time to carefully read the below policy. Violent or gory content intended to shock or disgust viewers, or content encouraging others to commit violent acts, are not allowed on YouTube. YouTube will no longer restrict violent video game content starting today. That was December 2019. So maybe video games are okay. Maybe. I don't see anything like this about online. I don't see anything. What's this all about? Are you this fake news? Found you a year ago or so talking politics. Snow day here in Canada. Cheers, Moshpit70. Snow day here in Canada. I was watching Jordan B. Peterson on... Chris Campbell tipped $25. That's big, mate. That's big. You are very generous indeed. Chris Campbell, very helpful on these 24-hour gaming streams. A logical presence. What with him being a bit of an engineer and computer scientist. Thank you, Chris Campbell. He says he doesn't leave a comment. He just drops the cash like that. Thank you so much, Mr. Campbell. Yeah, I was watching Jordan B. Peterson. He is very rambling. It's weird because he knows so much about psychiatry and yet he can't stop himself from rambling. He must be ADD as well. Like me, I guess. I guess self-diagnosed. Jordan B. Peterson just went off on some random shit. It was not a conversation with Joe. It was just him talking and talking. And the only thing Joe said was, I need to go to the toilet. That's the only thing I remember from Joe Rogan. I don't remember anything they covered of note other than Jordan B. Peterson wearing like a suit that was half one color, half the other, like Two-Face. But there were some really good bits in it, but it's like, I don't know, it's a bit messy. I might review that tomorrow for you lot. Richard says, I'm not going to say anything else about The Witcher apart from trust me. There wasn't a Witcher made in some series on Netflix or something. That also makes me not want to do it. Look. See, this puts me off. The Witcher 3 game. Is this good? Is this next gen only? If it's next gen, I would. That actually looks like a FromSoft game. That looks good. Is it good? This looks like a FromSoft game. Kind of. Maybe. It does look quite good. The Witcher 3 game completion time. How long does it take to finish? 51.5 hours. Oh, Lord. Okay. I see. Bretton Wood says, okay, Johnny, I think that policy doesn't apply to games from what I can tell. Good. Then we're in the clear. Lone Wolf says, I agree. It's hot so I can pull in the views. Defeat YouTube algorithm. Same creator as Cyberpunk. Okay. Should we just play Cyberpunk instead? I'd rather play that. Is Cyberpunk good? JP seems to be fighting on the right side of history, intellectually full of himself. Mosh pit. I don't think he's full of himself, but he's embattled. He is so under the cosh right now. They're trying to take away his license, and there's just so much hatred for him online, which he said is not reflected in the real world. And I think that's true. Online, it's kind of ginned up, and it's like a small niche of people who give the wrong impression of what his general public image is. But they're trying to fucking shut him down. There's people that are always attacking him online and just writing shit. He just sounds like he's always in fight mode because he's so on the side of truth and he fights what he believes in. He's got caught up in the culture war and he can't really get out of it now, right? That's how he made his name. Was being part of the culture war. That's why you know about him. So he just seems miserable and embattled and always on edge. You know, it never felt like they just relaxed and had a laugh and like just chatting. That's what you want from Rogan, and then you might get some cool things coming out. But it felt like a lecture, and it didn't really work for me that well. But there were still some great moments in there. Everyone is so virtuous here in Canada, afraid of the truth, says Moshpit70. They did talk about that on the Rogan episode. Later, skaters. See you later, Richard. Watch a trailer with gameplay, says Richard. Maybe we should play Cyberpunk. All right, let's watch a Witcher 3 trailer. See if this is any good. Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Killing Monsters, cinematic trailer. So I guess this is like a DLC. Excuse me. What the fuck is this?
By order of the Emperor of Nilfgaard, for the murder of the wounded, looting, cannibalism, you are hereby sentenced to death by hanging or torment.
Oh shit.
Don't meddle. Take the...
Oh, that looks sick.
Let's go.
Help me!
That looks like England.
Knew you witches wouldn't scorn imperial gold. Tough hunt.
Tougher than yours, that's certain. Evil is evil. Lesser, greater, middling, makes no difference.
Come with me. Bring her down. Do it my way. You like that, you bitch? Get the hammer. Kick her teeth in.
Okay, this looks fucking awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Definitions blurred. If I'm to choose between one evil and another, I'd rather not choose at all. Just make it quick, Geralt.
What the?
Close your eyes.
Hit him!
Holy shit.
What are you doing?
Killing monsters.
Dialect's decent. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. So maybe we will play that. Slowly being persuaded. Cool. Alright, well it's 7 a.m. 8, 9, 10. Oh my god, mate. So after 24-hour live stream, I think I slept from 4 a.m. until... Right, what time did I... 4 until... 1. So... Well, I slept from about 5 until 1. I slept for 8 hours, then I was awake for 2 hours. And then I slept from 3 until like 9. So I slept quite a lot. Woke up at 9 p.m. So I don't know. Am I still tired? Can I fall back asleep? I got to meet Matrin and her friend at midday here. I got to clean up and shit. So if I sleep now, 7, let's say I sleep at 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. I'm going to sleep 3 hours and then get on with my day. So I better go, everybody. Hero in the comments says, I'd love to see you play Witcher 3. That game is epic. I'm tempted. I'm tempted now. I'm tempted. Yeah, Moshpit says, damn, the graphics are so realistic now. One day, truth from fiction may be impossible. That's going to be some cray-cray. Deathcore says, Dead Space or Witcher either look good. Still going to push for New Vegas someday down the road. Okay. I think, so the vote is in. And 12 votes. People want Sekiro. Oh no, people don't want Sekiro. Oh shit, people want Witcher 3. Okay. Nobody wants Sekiro. Okay, so Witcher 3, then Dead Space, then Sekiro. Okay, really? People want Witcher 3 over Sekiro? Alright, so I think we're going to do Dead Space next. Or maybe what we'll do is, on the live stream, 24-hour, we'll do Dead Space or Sekiro. And then in the interim, we'll do Witcher 3 because it will take longer to complete. And I kind of feel trying to complete an RPG as quickly as possible in a time limit takes away from the fun. So maybe we'll do Dead Space or Sekiro on the 24-hour live stream. And Witcher 3 will just play regularly when I have a moment. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for your attention. As usual, hope you enjoyed my Elden Ring review. I did enjoy chatting with you briefly there. I'll be back tomorrow around the same time. I have been Johnny Massacre, and I tell you what, mate, you better be back for the next episode, otherwise I'll be coming around your house. Please make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell because, well, that is what all those other punks tell you to do. Layers.